Hello, good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of BOI Impact that will still be focusing on the recently concluded 2017 edition of the Chief Executive Officers Forum of the Association of African Development Finance Institutions, AADFI, recently hosted by the Bank of Industry in Abuja, Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory. I am Hadiza Olaoshibikon. This week's edition of the second part series of the program will showcase some of the plenary sessions that dealt with some of the challenges facing African development finance institutions in funding projects across Africa. Two of such special interest sessions are bridging the funding gap for sustainable development financing and achieving sustainable development by state governments' partnership with development finance institutions. On the last part of the program, we will bring you the meeting between AADFI executives and one of BOI's development partners, the Gombe State Governor, who came calling at the BOI office in Abuja. Here are highlights of the plenary sessions and the interactions that followed, as well as the meeting with the Gombe State Governor, Alhaji Ibrahim Hassan Dankwambo. Happy viewing. The first plenary session of the AADFI CEO Forum was on bridging the funding gap for sustainable development financing, the available options. The lead speaker was Joanne Larrier, the Chief Executive Officer, Convergence Blended Finance Incorporation of Canada. Her presentation was on the relevance of blended finance to financing sustainable development in Africa.
Essentially, if you were to imagine, just take one source of concessional capital, which is official development aid, and that's just one source. That's about $142 billion a year of money moving into developing countries globally, not just in Africa, but globally. If you were to take 10% of that, so $14 billion, give or take, and you were to put that money, instead of sheer grant work, if you were to put it into financial transactions, and that money were able to attract, say, $7 of commercial money for every $1 of ODA money, you would end up with $100 billion of investment that isn't happening today. So there's power in blended finance in that it is the use of other people's money, essentially, to achieve development objectives. So that, in a nutshell, is why it might be important to what you're doing in all of your exciting work as DFIs around this continent. What we're trying to do is create a third lane of traffic, blended finance, to achieve things that really need partnerships between those who have soft capital and those who have the trillions of dollars of hard capital out there. So just one last thought for you. If the Sustainable Development Goals they need about $2.5 trillion a year to get done. The average amount of money being traded on the worldwide stock exchanges is $1 trillion. That's the money you need to get into the equation to get your job done at the end of the day. So the question is, how do you take your very, very limited resources, pair them with other people's money in smart ways, and deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals?
Remittances now is the largest source of net foreign inflows to Africa. Unbelievable. How can DFIs tap in? I think there are three options for DFIs in remittances. One is to actually identify and include these receivers into the financial system. What we call BVN in Nigeria, others have it. Financial inclusion is an important objective of financial development. And I think for these small transactions, DFIs can come in here. Training and capacity building is another one. Okay. But who are they and what can you do to draw them into the financial system? This is where DFIs can really come in. Get these people abroad to invest in projects, SME projects in Africa. They don't have to actually return, but if they return, the better. But they can't fund the SME projects in Africa. And I think here DFIs have a role to play. Some DFIs already have matching funds of various types. Some can be created for DFI diaspora funding window, where the diaspora funds can be matched by the bank funds and leverage it for development. The other is actually training returnees in how to do business in their own particular environment. Show them how to build a good business model. Tell them how to choose a sector and other kinds of packaging program, because how to package a project is an important role in funding projects properly.
The panel discussion on the presentations was moderated by the chairman of Association of Nigerian Development Finance Institution, ANFI, Mr. Adekunle Oyiloye, who is also the MD CEO of Infrastructure Bank.
I will at this point call on David to share the experience of DBSA. We want to know what they do in bridging financing gap around debt and equity, and a host of other that you might have. Thank you very much, David.
Let's take, for instance, how much of money is stacked in our pension funds. Massive, trillions of nairas, trillions of rands that is sitting in our pension funds. So for me, I think we have to start saying the relevance of DFIs. Is it from chasing debt financing or unlocking value through our partnerships and bringing in, drawing and giving credibility or opportunity for the pension funds to come in by taking construction risk to unlock development funding. The issue to emphasize again is that we can't unlock Africa infrastructure gap by attracting foreign currency lending. The mismatch is too huge for our continent to bear. We've seen it here in Nigeria, we've seen it in Angola, where when the oil prices went south, that the mismatch almost made certain projects go bankrupt. We have to think outside the box and attract internal resources. Thank you very much.
Looking at the funding gaps in Africa, we looked at it, and the bank thought that we will focus on 5 regions. The 6th one, of course, is very important, which, of course, are very promising, but yet to be tapped. One is domestic resource mobilization, co-financing, private partnership, blended finance, tapping into reserves. We have looked at the other areas whereby we can raise domestic funding. And one of them is actually trying to support development by improving tax collection, broadening tax base, reducing capital flight, and increase financial resource mobilization. To drive this further, we established a unit in the bank which we called the Africa Resource Mobilization Unit. It's within our Treasury Department, and it has a mandate to raise 400 million during the current year, and as we speak, it has got up to 150 million internally, which means it's doable and we can do that. We saw that syndication is also very important. With syndication, we can ensure risk sharing and financing critical projects in the continent, which are in some cases long-term financing. Syndication is an important financing arrangement Afrexim Bank deploys to address some of the funding gaps in the continent.
The main objective of NASAL is how do we catalyze financing to the entire agricultural value chain to the degree of, for example, having 10% of total bank lending going to the agricultural sector alone. Now, we have moved beyond pure loan to involve other forms of financing for the agricultural value chain. How do we create a blended patient capital finance for agriculture that speaks to the need of the entire value chain? For example, for farmers, generally for production in arable crops, What it requires is a short-term capital, 1 year at most. But when we talk of the value chain itself, key infrastructure requirements within the value chain are land development, storage infrastructure, and irrigation infrastructure. These require longer-term patient capital. How do we create that kind of structure? I think working together and forming this partnership right from this occasion is extremely important for us to know how can we leverage all these possibilities and capabilities that we have amongst ourselves in Africa, and then tailor all this to the agricultural sector. Like I said earlier, we in NASAL, we are very technical, we are capable, we are risk managers when it comes to the agricultural space. We are ready to provide this partnership to make a structured use case for all the support we can get from DBSA, AfrExim, and African Guarantee Fund when it comes to application in the agricultural space.
Conversation with the state governments was anchored by the Executive Director, Small and Medium Enterprises of BOI, Mr. Wahid Olagunju, and it was centered on achieving sustainable development by state governments' partnership with DFIs.
Now we are talking of the Sustainable Development Goals. The target is to eradicate poverty by 2030. And DFIs have an important role to play in this regard. It therefore means that those who are underserved, the weak ones, need financial resources. We need to get across to them with suitable funding and on terms they can access. And of course, you will hear how we've been doing this at the Bank of Industry and how other state governments have been working with DFIs. For instance, we've been able to sign MOUs with 21 state governments. Because we're a federation, there are 36 states in Nigeria, we've been able to enter into matching fund arrangements with 21 of them, mobilizing almost 10 billion naira. We have 4 of them represented here today. As you heard the MC introducing them, we are dividing this session into 2. All of them have speeches from their governors, talking about the relationship with BOI in particular, and generally speaking, how their governments have been financing development initiatives in their respective states.
Kaduna Startup and Entrepreneurship Program, which is largely the project being undertaken in the state by Bank of Industry, aims to graduate 5,000 youths to be trained with entrepreneurial skills and aid employment generation. This, it is hoped, will address the overbearing influence or negative influence that the youths are having in the society. Experience of Kaduna State has been worth the while because it has helped to improve our processes, internal processes, because of the stringent conditionalities that usually accessing these DFI funds actually require. In most cases, taking for instance the World Bank facility that we are about to access, the conditionalities were really seriously demanding, and because of the leadership of, that we enjoy in the state, we needed to improve on our laws in some areas. In financial management, we needed to also up our game, especially in the area of mortgage refinancing. This discussion is likely to afford us more veritable resolutions that the state and the development partners, DFIs, would pursue in the next 5 years.
In achieving sustainability development, the following initiatives have been put in place in Ogun State, which has been led by His Excellency Senator Ibukule Amusu, Syrian FCA. Some of the initiatives we did in Ogun State and has been funded by DFIs, we believe that financing is key to the economic growth and development in Ogun State. We look at the issue of economic growth and industrialization, and we signed the JV with Bank of Industry, 1 billion naira, 500 million naira, 500 million naira, and it's single digit. BOI's rate was 10%, our own rate, we have 7%. So that means we have subsidized it by 3% to ensure that our people get value for this money they're asking for. And it's been able to create value chain and backward integration in terms of agro-allied, because we found out that the only way we can do that is to ensure that when they have this money at that rate, at 7%, and we actually encourage them by ensuring that we have moratorium. The first 6 months, we gave it to them so that they don't need to pay the interest, but they only pay the capital. And it has really helped them. To date, I'm happy to tell you that we've been able to disburse about 600 million naira out of these funds, and about 111 cooperatives and individuals that make that cooperative, about 1,046 individuals have actually benefited from this. And these are the people that are doing fish farming, cassava processing, poultry, Adure, Kampala. I remember vividly the first set of beneficiaries were the people that are doing this Adure, Kampala in Ogun State. And they collected these things in May 2012. And all the materials, Adure material, that they used during the Olympics in England, they came from Ogun State. And that's the reason why Ogun State is actually there, and people have been coming to Ogun State to buy this Adure, Kampala.
If states are to quickly achieve the first 4 to 5 goals of the 17 SDG goals, focusing on ending poverty, ending hunger, access to good health, access to quality education, and gender equality, we can't achieve these goals without partnership with DFIs. We've had this 2 billion MSME intervention. At the micro level, we've had better recovery, if I may put it that way, from borrowers. So the key issues that have come up with our experience on the BOI facility, the first thing is we need to take a second look at the SME sector in the state from a perspective of capacity development. So we need to revisit the issue around capacity building on the part of the SMEs. But we would also need to increase the size. Maybe whether having specialized type of facilities for each subsector. That way we would maybe make some of these finances to meet the peculiar attributes of each of the subsectors. That way the qualifying criteria would be defined given their unique attributes, and participation would increase.
Our collaborative arrangement with BOI in Kwara State has been very encouraging and beneficial to many people in the state. People who are either not having bank accounts have had the opportunity of having that access to the bank for financial support. And so far, we've been able to get about 97 projects in the state. So far, I think this is a very, very, very good arrangement. When we're giving the loans to individuals, we're having some challenges with default. Most of them were defaulting, but with the group lending, it has gone a long way to increase performances of the loan. I think that has been quite beneficial to us in Kwara State.
Our state, Benue, is largely an agrarian state, and over 87% of the economic activities are in the informal sector. For the DFIs to engage us, and I think to a large extent some states in Nigeria, we need a lot of education and enlightenment about the financial services being provided to us and where they come in to support the state governments to provide socioeconomic benefits to the citizens. With the present administration, the governor being an industrialist himself, he appreciates that this is a bank that has come of age, and he told us that once we get it right with the BOI, we get it right with any other bank, being commercial or development or financial institution. Request that the DFIs should work more in terms of enlightenment and education.
Welcome back. I hope you learned a thing or two from the plenary sessions. From the interaction there, you will agree with me that African DFIs are really on the path for greatness, and Nigerian government at all levels are also keen into the positive change mantra. The next segment of the program is the AADFI executives meeting with one of the bank's domestic development partner, the Gombe State Governor Alhaji Ibrahim Dankwambo, who shared his experience on the state's partnership with the Bank of Industry. Here are also highlights of the meeting. Enjoy it. After the deliberations, the AADFI executive led by the Vice Chairman, Dumisani Msibi, met with the Gombe State Governor, who shared his experience with the team on the state's partnership with the Bank of Industry.
2011, we started a relationship with this organization. So we signed an MOU between us, the bank and Gombe State government, to the tune of ₦1 billion with a matching fund of 500 million from us. So we started with 250 million each, and we created clusters, basically in areas that we have comparative advantage. Some people are jittery, they are not really sure whether it is true that this kind of partnership can work. But I must say it works. It creates opportunities. As at today in Gombe, orders are in multiple of millions every day in these two clusters that have been created. Jobs have been created. I've also tried something, through the off-grid solar project, which was 100% funded by DOI and UNDP. So we have one place in Gombe now they call London. Small London. They call it Small London because there is no power failure. Better than Abuja here where you cannot rely on power. And we have also signed to develop 11 more small community, of the site. But I also encourage you people to partner. Yes. I wouldn't know how you will mobilize, resources to support these DFIs. But in whichever you will do, it is very good time now to do it.
We feel highly honored for your coming. And then the testimonials from the executive governor. If you ask me to pay ₦1 billion, I can't pay for it. All I have to do is to take 3 seconds of what he has said. And every governor will put money with me to do matching fund. Sure, yeah. It's not to make profit. It's to help the people. Correct. Because what he's saying now, in a state, you have Little London. Little London means that there is power there, all the time. So, and we would like to partner with more states, to do more than what we have been doing. We are happy to work with the governor. Like I said, Northeast is a particular area of interest for us. In fact, we have commissioned some studies that have been done now to see how we can actually intervene, more in the industrial sector of the Northeast. Once again, on behalf of Bank of Industry and the executive of AADFI, I want to thank you very much, Your Excellency, for finding time to come and see us.
Welcome back. Those are the highlights of our chronicles on the 2017 Chief Executive Officers Forum of the Association of African Development Finance Institutions, AADFI 2017. In subsequent editions, we shall bring you other presentations and technical sessions, as well as the closing ceremony and the parting dinner. Join us same time, same station next week for another interesting edition of BOI Impact. I am Hadiza Olaoshibikon. Do have yourself an enterprising week. Bye for now.